A few tips for gardening. Where would we be if the big rigs stopped hauling food from east to west and back again? If the grocery stores stopped carrying all of the staples that we've become so used to, what would we do for food? Gardening is one useful way in becoming self-sufficient. If you are interested in preparedness and proactive measures, then gardening is a fun and tasty way to support yourself, so that if the interstate system collapses tomorrow, it will not devastate us as brutally. Some may believe that there are people who are born with a green thumb, and others who cannot keep their pet rock alive. However, gardening is like any other science. With a little practice, anyone can become a master gardener. All that is required is a little knowledge, a fair amount of time, and an abundance of desire. I used to be among those that abused their pet rock due to a lack of knowledge. That was until I visited my Uncle Art in Seattle for a summer, who happens to be a master gardener. His garden has always been so beautiful, and by asking questions and applying the answers to my own gardening techniques, I am able to grow a beautiful garden just like my uncle. For those of you who do not have the first clue when it comes to gardening, we will go over a few helpful things to remember when planting, providing care for, and harvesting our gardens. We will discuss everything from how to ward off some pesky animals and insects, to when and where to plant, and to which fertilizers provide the most optimum growth. Self-sufficient gardening may be the answer we have all been looking for when we see our sometimes not so progressive actions failing us. And as we undergo more and more travesties, we will be relieved when we were prepared. Taking these proactive measures can also be a fun and tasty way to get creative and get involved in the community that exists around us. A writer from Mother Earth News gave her personal account on some of the travesties she has experienced in her lifetime, and on how she endured them through taking proactive measures and gardening self-sufficiently. She reports, "Born in 1938, I was a product of the Great Depression. Ben Franklin's words from another era, 'Waste not, want not,' are burned into my psyche. How could people have gotten into the dreadful positions in which they found themselves during the 30s? More important, how could I avoid the same kind of pain and struggle if history repeated itself in my lifetime? Living in New York City in the 60s, I felt even more vulnerable. Remember when the lights went out in the entire Northeast? People were stuck in elevators and subways for hours. If the electricity were off long enough, there would be no water. When the sanitation workers went on strike, garbage piled up on the streets for weeks. Progress? What if everything failed? All that we have created in the industrial age, roads and means of transportation, electricity, communications, water delivery, the economic system? The farm in Maine that I purchased in 1969 became the focus of those thoughts. I could walk from New York City to Maine if I had to. I could dip my water out of the hand-dug well that was there. I could become a hunter-gatherer, if need be, on my own and nearby lands. These thoughts relieved my anxiety over being dependent on electricity, municipal water, and the complex and expensive food distribution system. Not only did the notion of independence relieve anxiety, it felt really good. The more I thought about it, the better it felt. Thus, I began gardening for independence. 3 years later, when I pried the first parsnips from my not quite yet thawed ground in the spring, we were still eating potatoes, carrots, onions, winter squash, tomatoes, peas, green beans, spinach, cucumbers, and rutabaga that we had stored from the previous summer's garden. Furthermore, self-sufficient gardening can help us through our own economic downturn. In Wilmington, Ohio, more than 40 lower-income families are tending plots in the community garden in the Wilmington College campus to grow their own vegetables and herbs. The project is part of the Grow Food, Grow Hope program, whose mission statement is to raise awareness of the benefits of local food production and backyard gardening. Self-sufficient gardening is also easy to enjoy, easy to start, and easy to get involved. Amy Francini has rekindled her city's self-sufficient spirit with edible art displayed on the walls of galleries all over San Francisco. She has also put together gardening starter kits so that others can begin gardening for both aesthetic and self-sufficient reasons. Anyone can learn to garden anywhere, and we do not even have to spend a bundle, devote all of our time, or lose our sanity. We can also buy the cheapest seeds and the youngest plants. The horticulturist for the American Horticultural Society says, "They're the cheapest and best plants. Anybody can go to the store and buy a large tomato plant with tomatoes on it, but they'll pay an arm and a leg for it, and how will they get it home without damaging it?" By doing it ourselves, we save a substantial amount of money. In California, Sean Nib created this program that will design our garden for us in the most economical way possible. Nib Modular is aimed at matching up garden lovers with the stylish, affordable, eco-sensitive green space of their dreams. The operator decides which plants and trees they want to plant, tells the program how much shade their yard usually receives, and then voila! A landscape design is put together without needing any graph paper. But these NIB modular made gardens are not just affordable. Sometimes affordable can be green too. When discussing his software, NIB is cited saying, "The gardens use very little water and they're easy to maintain. I'm just using the web as a tool so people can choose the sustainable materials and native plants they like and customize everything before they get to us. It cuts time and money." Let us make the most of the time we have in our gardens. Saving time is mostly all about the planning. As a gardener, winter planning is a really resourceful use of our time because there is little we can do out in the garden during the winter months. Planning that we are going to plant where, sorting the seeds in those areas. These are helpful ways to plan what we will go and do when spring arrives. When budgeting time, the hardest part is deciding what things to plant that will grow optimally in our own areas. If we try to plant raspberries in Florida, we may be disappointed after spending all of our time on a fruitless effort. Perennials are a really time-efficient way to have color in all 4 seasons because they grow year-round. The intimidation of gardening is one reason it is not done as often as it should be, but we are all in charge of making it easy. Like anything else, remember that it's just a game. Maybe start out small at first, and if it doesn't turn out the first time, try it again because it simply takes practice. When first starting out, start with topsoil bags. These bags prevent the invasion of caterpillars and eliminate all of the aggravation produced by cutworms. Pests are half the battle when gardening. Weeds are another common intruder in a garden, chasing away the beginning gardener. But bad gardens have fewer weeds than a regular garden too. The most difficult thing in all the world is to try to go up against nature. Do all of us a favor and plant according to the season. Planting oranges in the fall will just frustrate a newly acquainted gardener. So plant onions in mid-spring, kale in midsummer, and garlic in late fall. As beginning gardeners, we see all of these lavish and beautiful gardens. Those gardeners started somewhere too, and with the modern day world being what it is, they probably recorded their experience. So get online. Let us do some research to find the answers of the things we want to know. The blogosphere is full of questions and suggestions and research that provide us with all of the information that we want to know. If we cannot find it there, we can go to the library where there are books galore that will answer our questions. Usually there is some kind of library in every school district, and library cards are usually inexpensive, if not free. Ask the gardeners at the local hardware store too. He or she works around these plants that you are interested in and the plants in season all day long, and is hopefully more than qualified to answer all of your questions. Also, they have a vested interest in our success because they want us to return to their establishment the next season for more of our seed buying needs. Now that we are past the preliminary gardening explanation, here is the part we have all been waiting for. We will begin with the measures we need to plant our plots. Plan what we will plant in each specified bed. We can say bed 1 is for beets. Put all of the beet seeds into a little bag labeled bed 1. Do this for each bed or topsoil bag for however much space we are allotted. Another thing to remember when planting beds, bags, and rows is to give ourselves 1 foot wide as a walkway so that we are not stepping all over the roots of our other plants. Remember to group plants that have similar properties close together. 2 weeks before planting, till the topsoil so that it is loose enough. Loose soil is important because with it, we cannot stick our seeds in far enough to provide room for the roots to grow. The next thing we will need to do is to protect our plots. We grow this food for ourselves, our loved ones, and our family members, our friends, our neighbors, but seldom has it been said that we go to all of this work to garden for the local deer or pesky caterpillars. We can protect our plots from deer with defensive barriers like fences and prevent caterpillars from eating our food by laying a tarp over the soil, then laying mulch over that. Tarps and mulch also prevent weeds from choking our plants and taking over our gardens. Choosing soil to fill in our plot is probably the most complex part of gardening. However, it is only as complex as we make it. There are hundreds of different soils and fertilizers, all claiming to do the same thing. Fertilizers may be the easiest for a beginning gardener, but eventually said gardener will want to move on out of fertilizer because it can be really hard on the soil over a prolonged period of time. Many gardeners believe that compost is your first choice fertilizer because it's the best thing for your soil and crops and is also the most sustainable, environmentally friendly option. But remember, making our compost properly and having it checked is always important because we want our compost to help our gardens, not pollute it. As far as mulch is concerned, organic mulch is said to be the cheapest and most sustainable. Organic mulches can range from grass clippings to leaves or leftover debris of the plants from the previous seasons. Our season is finally here, and it is time to plant our plots. What do? Notice that we are not just going to plant in spring, but seasons. We will plant our onions in mid-spring, about 4 weeks before our last frost. Simply Google frost date for your area. We will water them well because we want that moisture to set under the roots. After planting, we will mark our calendars reminding us to cultivate in 10 days. This will help us weed out unwanted pests. 3 or 4 weeks later, plants like radishes start to come through. These are ready for eating, but continue to visit the garden weekly for upkeep, for weed picking, and for harvesting. Let us develop the practice of gardening so that we can all live in the security of being self-sufficient. If we do so, we will not fear the day our planet runs out of natural resources to get our trucks from Napa, California to Seattle, Washington. Neither will we fear weather that makes it impossible to deliver our food staples to such places. Just remember the simple and helpful tips we have gone over. We must know how to protect our gardens from unwanted pests. We must plant smartly, meaning we must know what to plant and where to plant it. And we must know which fertilizer provides the most growth for our area and our soul. Now let us go forth and enjoy our gardens.